welcome. My name is Natalie and I'm pleased to be taking you through an exciting stick mobility class combining the 3 ingredients to good mobility, which in the stick mobility method we name as joint range of motion, neuromuscular control and strength. And we'll be working all 3 of those ingredients today. We'll start off the class with some joint mobilizations running through our entire body, working from the ground up. Then once our joints are prepared and ready for the moves to follow, we'll be adding in some strength to activate and prime our muscles and tissue. And then from there we'll be moving in some deep fascial stretches or some deep fascial tensioning. The stick mobility method is designed to give you a sense of feedback, give you some leverage and also some stability to help your body feel safe. And when the body feels safe and stable, then it's ready to make change, and with that change comes long-lasting change. But just before we get started, like with anything new, I'll run you through a little bit of a stick safety as well as just a reminder to go at your own pace today, to not take anything to the point of pain, and to obviously keep this class all about you, about exploring your body, exploring the beautiful imbalances and imperfections that we have. And as we become more aware, we can then create a little bit more of a focus on what we want to work on within ourselves. So with the sticks today, you'll notice you have 4 sticks. We're going to have them on the outside of your mats. With the stick safety, of course, they come in different lengths, so we just want to be mindful with the space around us, making sure that as we move the sticks into different body parts, that the space around you is clear, that the person next to you is clear, and if you need to, of course, just stagger accordingly or move in a way that you've had a little check around, nothing above you, nothing to the side of you, no one behind you, and then, rather just take a little bit more time in setting up. Number 2 is that when we move into some of our deep fascial stretches or deep fascial tensioning moves, we tend to put some flex on the stick. So we want to be able to move and just slightly rotate or quarter turn the stick. I'll remind you of this, of course, as we repeat or go through a few repetitions and add flex to the stick. This just helps protect the stick, keep the longevity of the stick so it can be your best friend for the long term. And like I mentioned, not taking anything to the point of pain, not overly relying on the sticks, making sure that if they're on the ground or on your mat, they feel quite solid and that you can always hold your own rather than kind of hanging on for dear life. So with that in mind, let's get started. We're going to take one of your long sticks in hand and just place it out in front of you, a bit like kind of like a third leg, and this is just for another point of stability. So we've got 3 points of stability here. We're going to take the feet just outside of the shoulders and we're going to work from the ground up, working some mobility through our feet and ankles. And we'll just start with the right foot, I'll mirror you today, and allowing that right heel to peel on up from the ground, feeling how we stretch the fascia of the foot and create that neuromuscular control through the ankle joint as we allow it to lift with control. From there, we slowly want to reach the heel back and down and eccentrically control how we're placing that heel back to the ground. We'll do that a couple of times here, peeling up, pushing through the joint beneath the big toe and reaching that heel back and down. So you can imagine as if there is a clock behind you. We want to go up to 12 o'clock and then moving the heel back and down. As we work through this motion, we start to mobilize the ankle joint on the sagittal plane, and then we'll give it a little bit more of a challenge on the frontal plane and the transverse plane. So really taking our joint mobilizations through all planes of movement, getting them ready for some of the deepest strengthening and tensioning movements to follow. From there, we'll make this our last one, and then we'll move over to that left foot, peeling away through the heel, really opening all 5 toes, the webbing of the toes, feeling that you can deliberately set that intention to stretch the fascia of your foot. Meanwhile, checking in with our sort of horse stance here, our posture lengthening down from the lower back, the tailbone reaching down. Slight integrity through the core here, drawing up just behind the pubic bone by sense, and a sense of just keeping that stick there for support, using it as little as possible but as much as you need to at the same time. We'll take one more here on the left, starting to really wake up the feet so they know their role to help us interact with the ground. We're going to move back over to the right foot now and take that heel across from side to side into some lateral translation, creating that mobility through the outer edge of the foot and the inner edge of the foot. Creating that lateral and medial mobility for the ankle joint, now on that frontal plane. Try to really feel how you're rolling into the power pad of the foot, from the ball beneath the big toe, hitting all those 5 digits and reaching all the way to the ball beneath the little toe. Try to make this movement quite precise, and if you feel like it's really quite challenging, drive the stick into the floor just a little bit more, giving you a reference and again helping the body feel safe so that it can create change. Make the next one your last one, and we'll move over to that left foot, bringing that lateral translation across into that left ankle, going from the ball beneath the little toe and over to the ball beneath the big toe. Meanwhile, just gazing down at the knees for a moment and just making sure the knee isn't overly moving. We're giving the ankles their time to shine, and it's the ankle joint that's the hero joint here. And if you do find that the knee is really quite moving a lot, just make the movement smaller so we can really do that quality range and just go to the true range of the ankle joint. No need to overly do it. Less is more. When we lose this lateral translation in our ankle, it can manifest higher up in the knee and hip and sort of cause all sorts of maybe not so serving strategies of movement or patterns. Beautiful. From there, we'll allow that foot to center and retrace the heel back down. Let's check in with the arms, relax through the shoulders and jaw, and we'll peel on up through that right heel again. Now we're going to take the ankle joint through that transverse plane, taking it out to the side, down in a circular motion towards the floor, just brushing the floor under that heel, peeling it up and closing that circle. We'll go 5 times in each direction. And again, if there was that clock behind your heel, you'd be sort of hitting that 12, 3, 6, and 9, and moving through. Again, the knee is quite balanced, the hip is quite balanced, the body is centered, and the stick is a bit of a reference point to keep you in line with your center, keeping it all in check. Feeling how you roll and massage the fascia of the foot, open the webbing of the toes, and start to articulate through all those 33 joints in your foot. Remembering that the foot is quite a complex structure and it's kind of been forgotten about, so really working from the ground up. Let's reverse those circles and take it in the opposite direction, reaching up and around and down. Now again, if you feel like you need a bit more support, you can drive that stick into the floor a little bit, which creates this principle of creating stability at the proximal, at the core of your being, and then allowing that distal mobility, so freeing up with a little bit more safety in the body, a little bit more connection. Beautiful. Let's take that over into that left foot now, taking the heel up, across, down and back. And just noticing how the right side and left side might have their subtle differences, their nuances, and just observing the subtleties. Once we become aware of our imbalances, we can then strive for more, to achieve more balance. And just kind of make that mental note, oh yeah, this is something I need to work on. Let's move that in the opposite way now. We're reaching the heel up, over and down, brushing the floor just beneath the heel, and also feeling the texture of your mat, noticing how much information we can feed from the foot back up to the brain. You're feeling the pressure as it rolls from the little toe edge to the ball beneath the big toe. And reminding your feet, reminding your foot its role to really communicate the ground to the rest of our body, right up to our control center, our brain. Once we've reached through those circles, we can make it a little more challenging now. Feel free to just alternate back to single legs. But otherwise, we're going to peel on up and double lift both heels off the mat. Keeping that length through the tailbone, that draw back through those lower abdominal fibers, and if you need to, perhaps using that stick a little bit more. And so we call this the Elvis, because we want to keep the head kind of from bopping up, as if there's a little ceiling hovering above, and you want to pop through that ceiling. So you feel free to make your own kind of Elvis noises here, or just play your favorite soundtrack. This always makes me think of Blue Suede Shoes, especially when we go to that side-to-side movement. So again, really helping the heels move down with control. So we work both phases. It's not just about getting those heels up, but also reaching and controlling the eccentric phase down. Try to really open your foot, kind of like a lizard's foot, slurping the mat, opening up. Feeling the kind of stretchiness and elasticity to the foot. Keeping those heels up now, we're going to take them side to side. This is definitely a little more tricky when we move both heels together. So again, maybe it's not as big as before. Remembering that that stick is a reflection of you, so if it's sort of all over the place, that is a subtle compensation. You might need to push it down a little bit more and make that movement a little smaller. Again, keeping it quite concise through the ankles. Really feeling how you're interacting with the ground, the surface, perhaps noticing the texture beneath the mat and allowing all that information to relay to the brain, really waking up, sensitizing the feet. Let's take that into our circles now, lowering the heels down, moving through those numbers on the clock, hitting all those digits, and again, keeping that stick as a reference in line with the pubic bone, navel, breastbone, nose, and third eye by sense, that space between your brow. If the arms are fatigued back here, you can definitely pull the stick in a little more. But you might find that it gives you just a bit more stability when you reach out. But again, have a play and see what works well for you. Let's reverse and take those circles in the opposite direction. Moving through, staying in that squat. Of course, you can make this a little more difficult by dropping into a deeper squat, or make it a little less by allowing yourself to sort of come out of that Elvis movement. Allow yourself to bop up and down. But again, we're not overly moving, it's just the heels. Remembering that this is just a warm-up, so we definitely don't need to peak too soon. Beautiful. From there, letting the feet find the floor again, driving that stick, angling it in, and we're going to move up into the hips. Just allowing the pelvis to gently rock forwards and back. Almost as if the pelvis was a bucket of water and we would spill that water out in front, and then allow that water to spill out from behind. And that's what we say, spilling that water out in front would be tilting the pelvis forwards, and then to that posterior tilt, spilling that water back would be tilting the pelvis back. And just allowing that movement of the pelvic bones to just kind of rock over the heads of the femurs, the top of your thigh bones. And acknowledging that the pelvis is really what makes up the hips and our lower back, which are very common areas where we all hold tensions or perhaps compensate and have developed strategies that don't necessarily serve us. in that sort of arch of your lower back. Just feel the softness, the sponginess, the cushioning of the spring in the spine. And then imagine opening the coils of the spine. You don't need to overly grip your glutes, but just allow the arch of the lower back to kind of feel like a spring and have that kind of springy feeling to it. From there, we're going to go side to side. So we're going to reach each hip bone up as if you're drawing a smile from one point over to the other and allowing the hip to hike up. So one side of your waistline shortens as you take the pelvis from side to side. Again, breathing, always letting your breath flow. And finding that quality of movement just in the pelvis. Of course, the feet and knees are responding, and the body's responding as a whole, but we're letting the pelvis be the hero. Let's take this into some circles now. So this is your Rio de Janeiro moment, allowing the pelvis to circle around, moving through, almost as if you're kind of wearing a hula hoop and you're skimming the inside of the hula hoop. The stick and you are not moving all that much, but the pelvis is having a great time. And I love to remind everybody here that it's not just about the hips and the lower back and the legs, but some of our most vital organs are housed in the pelvis. Our reproductive system, at the back we have our kidneys just a little bit higher up. And also for men's health and women's health, getting that circulation into here, that nourishment, that fresh blood supply to really help nourish the deeper organs, the muscle fibers, and the tissue around this area. So, really give it a good little nourishment, as if you're creating your own little whirlpool here. And let's reverse and swish it around in the opposite direction. All too often we're just sitting and allowing that stagnation to occur in one of the most precious parts of our being, and precious parts of our body. So we really kind of want to flush it all out, rinse it all out, circle it around, and just bring some nourishment to the region. So again, make this movement quite luscious, quite generous. Be generous with yourself. And allow yourself the goodness of this movement. And from there, we'll move up to the rib cage, allowing the rib cage to kind of lift and slide across, just kind of left of the stick, and then bringing it back, and then allowing that rib cage to lift and slide over to the right and back. Now we're not collapsing, it's more like you're lifting the ribcage and stretching it across, and then allowing it to just recoil and settle down. And then over to the second side, reaching across and allowing it to settle down. And in doing so, it's almost as if you're creating this little flossing at the deepest level of your spine, allowing the vertebrae of your spine to kind of move away from each other, and in that stimulating some of those deep spinal stabilizers. So see if you can imagine kind of taking that a little bit higher up, almost as if you had the awareness to move each rib away from those joints that attach the ribs onto that thoracic spine, bringing some mobility on the deepest layers and then on the deepest levels. And then see if we can bring that all the way up into the cervical spine, the neck, and allow the cheek to kind of press against an imaginary wall. And then allow the cheek to move. And again, it's kind of this typewriter movement of the head just shifting across without necessarily tilting or falling, but rather finding that slide across. Really just allowing that movement to come from across. Like a skateboard would move, or a typewriter as it comes to the end and we bring it back. So bringing that mobility and waking up those deep spinal stabilizers all the way up into our cervical and deep neck muscles. Beautiful. And from there, we'll just roll it out. We're going to step to the side of the stick and just place it down. You can lunge down. And we'll now collect the shorter stick, bringing that one up with you. From there, we're going to take your right hand, just hold kind of where the sticker is. Wrap all your fingers around. So the beautiful thing about stick mobility, it really does give us that grip strength. And then we're going to send the arms straight out, looking for sort of knuckles, elbow and shoulder to be aligned. Make sure you're not overreaching and turning away from the stick, but rather keeping the body square on. If you need support here, the other arm can kind of create a little bit of a rest for that working side, or just see how you go and rest if you need to. We're going to start with our propellers. So we're moving the stick through like a propeller movement. Start off nice and slow and controlled, and keep that little finger wrapped at all times. Keep the elbow and the shoulder relatively still or stable, and this is more of an interplay of those bones in your forearm, the ulna and the radius. And the connective tissue between them, sometimes if there's some adhesions or stickiness there, it can really prevent us from flexing our wrist, which of course we need if we're going to do any weight bearing, body weight exercises on the floor. With today's society, we'll know that we need a little bit more strength in our wrists, mobility in our wrists, and acknowledging that the nerves that come out from our spine, through our neck, down our shoulders, through our wrists, into the tips of our fingertips, they're all part of that central nervous system of our being, so we can really help to free up. If you feel like you've got the control, we can make this movement a little bit bigger. But again, not at the expense of letting that elbow and shoulder kind of hike all the way up. And you can sort of visualize as if there's a plane of glass just in front of the stick and behind the stick. And you don't want to knock the glass with the ends of the stick, you just want to allow that stick to glide through nice and smooth. Of course, keep breathing, checking in with the core, the length in the lower back, the softness through the knees, and that sort of connection down from the feet. Let's swap hands here, taking that into the left side, wrapping all those fingers around and working smooth, meditating on the wrists, really allowing that movement to move freely through. Breathing in, supporting if you need to. As you fatigue, your arm might end up down here, just pick it back up, and we're moving through. If you find that you've got good control, we can pick up the speed, but again, not at the expense of losing that neuromuscular control. We're here to create new strategies and to create change that is beneficial, strategies that serve. So take your time and move through it with quality. Breathing, keep connecting, checking in with your posture here. And of course smiling, not overly taking it too serious. From there, we're going to add another movement that is generally lost in the wrist, changing sides, so right hand holds, keeping that stick parallel to the floor, and knuckles face forward so the front of the wrist is nice and flat. And we're moving through what we call our hammer heads. Now it's as if those planes of glass were above the stick and below. We don't want to knock it as we just glide that stick smoothly. And again, less is sometimes more. Opening the little finger side and thumb side of the wrist. Moving through it with grace and control. Now you'll notice that when you reach the little finger side away, the tendency is to sort of crumble in that elbow and unwrap that little finger. So see if you can edit that out and keep the movement really quite controlled here. From there, we'll turn the stick vertical and go into our cast away, kind of like you're throwing a fishing rod, casting it away as far as possible, and then reaching the underside away. And again, we just want to move through the wrist, so as you cast that underside, watch the elbow. We don't want the elbow to bully the wrist, we want to give the wrist its time to shine. So really allowing that little finger side to open without losing grip or without crumbling in that elbow, keeping that control. If you find that this is getting a little too much, obviously rest, or you can hold a little bit higher on the stick and just move. This will make the stick feel lighter. Or if you want a bit more, we can move the hand down, making the stick feel heavier and accessing and needing even more control. From there, let's switch sides, taking that left hand to the sticker, parallel and gliding through. Breathing. And again, opening those pathways from the wrist to the hands, helping to prevent carpal tunnel, tennis elbow, and also just good strong upper body strength that comes from that grip strength. From there, we'll take that stick vertical and start to cast away. In the Stickmobility method, we say that the grip strength, glute strength, and abdominals are the three most powerful neural generators. So by improving our grip strength, we can really improve our overall body strength. And release. Beautiful. Taking the stick and holding it to the ends of the stick. From there, we're going to hinge down over the hips. Let the knees be soft. Let the chest stay higher. So we're keeping sort of a neutral spine. You can create a bit of length down through the lower back. But again, just being mindful, opening through the feet, and not sort of overly down or hunched over, but rather just comfortable. We're going to add some thoracic rotation now, driving that stick over to your right, using that left hand to give it a little bit more push, and opening through that right armpit area. For now, we're going to keep the head centered, eyes over the front edge of your mat. And breathing in, back through center. And then we're going to exhale and take that stick over to the left. Breathe into center. Breathe out. Meanwhile, letting the shoulder here be that hero joint to open, and the rotation come from the thoracic spine, that sort of upper mid-back region. Whilst the pelvis and the lower back kind of counter-rotating by sense, so they appear to me like they're staying stable. But nothing is fixed or rigid in the body. We kind of have those micro movements to create, and counter movements to create that mobility and control. Breathing in as you center, breathing out. And this time we're going to add the neck and allow the neck and head to follow that pathway from the thoracic. So as you take that stick to the right, let your eyes follow along. Breathing in back through center, and then as you exhale, let the eyes follow along. An indication that perhaps you might be shifting would be that the weight gets heavier on one foot. So we really want to keep the weight balanced in both feet. Now we're using that stick to get that arm a little bit higher. So we're leveraging off the stick to get just a little bit more range than we would without the stick. Inhale to center and exhale to the left. On this next one, we're going to allow the pelvis to come with us, taking a little bit more of a rotation through, bringing that left hip over with you, and back through the center, and moving through, and back through center. Let's go one more to each side, starting to retrain and remember that sort of bone rhythm, that bone domino effect, how the rotation moves through the spine. On this next one, let your heel lift, pivot through the ball of that foot, and drive that stick even higher up, like you're a pro golfer here. Inhale back through the middle, and exhale from the ground up, all the way up. Never losing connectivity of the ball of that foot, but rather finding that drive and that patterning, that sequential sequencing of the body, creating that rotation. Eyes can follow the stick. You can tone that right back down if you need to. Or perhaps you're feeling good here and want to add a bit more of a dynamic move to kind of quicken the pace. Inhale slowly down. Exhale. And let's do 2 more to each side. Working from the ground up. One more, exhale. Back through center and reaching through. Slowly back. Beautiful. We're going to now wrap our hands around the stick and get a nice grip of all 10 fingers. We're going to pull the stick apart, opening through the chest, the collarbones, and pulling the stick apart so much so that you start to feel the back of your arm line engage, that posterior chain of the shoulders. With that tension maintained on the stick, we're slowly going to take that stick up and reach it towards overhead. Now at this point, you may need to take your hands a little wider, and that's totally fine. As we take the stick all the way down towards the lower back. We could just stay overhead, so definitely don't have to come all the way down. From the back, we're going to push that stick away, reach it up, over, and just pause for a moment at the eyes. We're going to push into the stick now and slowly bring it down to the thighs. Before you move that stick, pull that stick apart, rising up with control. Here, the ribs like to sometimes flare and the head sometimes likes to fall forward, so we can clear that stick. We want to make sure that we can edit that out, keep that in check. And again, let the shoulders here be the hero joint. We're reaching that stick away from the back of your body, away from the back of your head, up, over to the eyes, and from here we push into the stick, as if we're trying to shorten the stick. And we'll go for a couple more here. Pull apart first, breathe in, watch that forward head, watch the ribs, control, watch sloppy shoulders. We really want to make sure we can control it equally through right and left sides. And rather than thinking up, I'm thinking back, away from me, generous through the arms, watching the head, opening through the shoulder blades, pushing into the stick as I bring it down to the thighs. And pull apart, inhale up, bring that breath into it, exhale down. Keeping those elbows nice and straight, keeping that movement with quality, those fingers wrapped. And why it's important to push-pull on the stick is that we not only just passively improve our range here, but by creating that push-pull on the stick, we also enable us to strengthen that range. So not only just getting passively flexible, but also getting strong within that range. Really protecting and strengthening that whole shoulder complex. Let's do one more. Breathing on in. And breathing on out. Reaching that stick out from behind, breathing on in. And breathing on out. Beautiful. From here, we're going to place that stick down